So the topic for today's video, excuse me, is a lot of updates basically. I have a few things I want to talk about in terms of my content, excuse me, in terms of I'm going to be doing this summer. For that, some financial stuff that has come up as well. Uh, and then after that, I can turn it over to James, who may have some updates of his own regarding content or questions for me or something like that.
My thing just completely lagged out, so I'm just gonna keep my video off, and hopefully that keeps it happy.
Oof. Finally, I may or may not have some financial opportunities online. So, a few things to mention there. I finally have a TikTok shop. So you guys can go to my TikTok profile and check out my shop. What I am enjoying about this TikTok shop is that I can decide what products I add to my store, and you guys can go there and check them out. This also means that any of the product that I put there for you guys will be related to the content of, the broader social media and content that I do. So it's all going to be nerdy stuff or Christian stuff. So believe currently right now there is like a Christian shirt, like a little Jesus toy thing as well. Uh, there's an anime shirt. It's got like Majin Vegeta on it. Fire. And there's a couple more things there. So I would encourage you guys to go check that out. I will be adding products there in time that's related to my content. So definitely go check that out, and I'll remind you over the course of this live stream to go do that. But yeah, I'm really excited about that, and as well as other opportunities here to talk about. Regarding YouTube, over the summer, I am going to hopefully be interning with the Clyde Park Church of Nazarene, which is a church that I have been helping regarding their online content. This summer, though, I really want to get into it, especially for that internship. So I'm going to try to make a schedule for that, and you'll see weekly YouTube shorts on the Clyde Park Church of Nazarene YouTube channel, as well as some long form content as well. Some stuff I'm late on, like the video on New Testament wisdom that I need to upload, but you'll see some other stuff there as well. So be on the lookout for that over the summer, which I will also keep you guys updated on through videos here on my main channels. Secondly, related to my YouTube channel, there have been some financial developments. So I had a video of mine go viral over the last, well, for me, viral over the last few months. Say that again.
Yeah, you can say that again.
So, it's a video of me reacting to a joke, which I failed at. I was trying not to laugh and I failed miserably. But that video across YouTube and Instagram now has over 12 million views. And so this video is the sole reason why I, for example, have some financial opportunities on YouTube, which I will tell you guys about, but also the reason why I am very close as we speak of having 10,000 subs on YouTube. So I'm at like 9.9 something. So I am very close. So I would encourage anyone who's watching this, go to my link tree. You can click on my YouTube channel from there. Definitely check out the content. You'll see content there that you're not going to see on TikTok and other places as well. So definitely go check that out. And I will be, of course, uploading stuff for that during the summer. Right now, I have a planned video I'm doing, which is a book review of a book titled "Understanding Transgender Identities." So in June, that video is going to come out, and it's basically 4 different Christian responses, some affirming, some not, regarding the topic. So that video is going to come out in June on my YouTube channel. I want to try to get closer to finishing, if not just finishing, my biblical slavery series, which I was doing on YouTube. So, and there will be some live streams in there and some other things to check out as well. That said, though, related to some of the financial stuff I've now been able to unlock because this video did so well. Um, I'm thinking about adding membership to my YouTube channel, which would mean that you would pay a certain monthly amount to be a member and you would get certain perks as a result of that. I will talk more about that in a little bit because I want to mention some of my financial ethics that I plan on abiding by as I sort of explore some of these opportunities. That said, I am also working on getting a YouTube store prepared so that you guys could either buy product on YouTube or on my TikTok account at the TikTok shop. And I have super chats and like super likes and stuff like that available. So during premieres and live streams, you can pay to send in those chats, and those can take priority during those times. Further, just a few other things as well. I write articles, and so I plan on doing that a lot over the summer. This actually directly relates to you, James, because James has a website called followersoftheshepherd.org. Great website, go check it out. But there I upload articles there, and I also upload them to my own personal blog on Medium. So I have some planned articles for that, not just school papers that I've written that I want to publish but have not yet, but also some articles on metamodernism. And if you guys don't know what that is, that's totally fine. But I plan on making some articles about that. Excuse me. And I want to wrap up my evolutionary creationist series, which is an article series that I did defending theistic evolution or evolutionary creationism. So I'm really excited about that as well. And I'm going to be working on that some more over the summer, revamping some of the articles, doing some editing, things like that. Furthermore, if you guys don't know, I am an ambassador for a beauty and skincare company.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so I am doing some work now to try to see what's going on there because it looks like they're revamping some things. But you guys still have access to that. So you can go to my link tree now and you can click on the link to Verena. And if you're interested in beauty and skincare products, you can check some of that out as well. I know at least some of my viewers are because some people have bought from there in the past. So if you're interested, you guys can go check that out. So relating to all these financial opportunities, I want to note like I have grown up very poor my entire life, obviously. A very broke minority, if you will. So, um, I want to ensure that, like, I engage in anything that's financial on social media ethically and with a mind that, like, of and remembering where I was oftentimes as a viewer of content creators or whatever, and not being able to engage or do certain things because of financial barriers. So one of the things, at least, that I'm pretty confident on now, and maybe I'll have some other ethical guidelines in the future. But one thing for sure is that I don't want to lock any of my content behind a paywall. So any articles that I make, any videos that I make, they all are going to be out there for free. And this is partially due to the fact that I think a lot of my content is important and needs to get a conversation going, and I don't want to lock that behind a paywall. But also just relates to like personally and growing up and remembering, seeing your favorite creator or something, but not being able to see a piece of their content you wanted to because it was locked behind a paywall. not being able to play that game that you wanted to because you have to pay for it. So I don't want to do that. So I want to make sure that any financial giving that you guys do is of your own volition and is optional. So as I explore these avenues, I will definitely make sure of those things, that I don't lock my content behind a paywall, and that payment is always optional. I think that's really important, and so I hope that that is something you guys can appreciate as you continue to support me and help me grow as well. That said, feel free to support me because like I said, am a broke college student. So if if there is anything you can give, feel free to get you something nice, like from my TikTok shop, hopefully my future YouTube store, Verena, and I'll get a little bit of something in return, but you'll get a really nice product that hopefully you will like. So, all of that said, James, I will hand it over to you.
So, well, thank you. So, as everyone who's probably been watching my content for a hot second, they probably noticed my view or my content has been very slow. I've been struggling to post a lot just because of college. Trying to do medical programs, so there's like a lot of fun homework there. So this summer is going to be just me posting like a madman. This is the plan. Hopefully, at least 2 a week is my goal, and then I'm going to try to make 3 videos a week, and then try to um, for like the fall semester post the third video. So if I do go crazy on my homework, I'll have at least some sort of buffer. Is the goal there? Um, so also hoping to do a lot more translated content. So if anyone's been watching my YouTube a lot, they'd probably notice I'd have like Chinese videos or Japanese videos, a few French and Spanish videos as well. And I'm trying to post a lot more of those because they've been doing well, and a lot of people had positive feedback on it. So my goal is, since I'm picking up more shifts at my job, to start making more of those kinds of videos with my translators. So hopefully those go well, um, which would also equivocate to more translated articles on the website. So be sure to check those out when they're out.
Followstheshepherd.org.
Yeah, I gotta plug it.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see how that goes. We do. Not really sure if I have any more fun updates besides all that and stuff.
All right. Well, two more quick things. Daily content is back to usual. So I will be making at least a video a day, maybe, probably, possibly two a day. We'll see. And furthermore, I mentioned a long time ago, I've mentioned it in videos and through streams, that I was doing a D&D campaign for some friends of mine here on campus that was set in between the time of the fall of angels, so around that like Genesis 6 area, but before the flood. So that went very well. The campaign finished, so I am working on part two over the summer, so that when they come back in the fall, we can get back to the storytelling and everything. But it was a really fun campaign. I really enjoyed it, learned a lot, um, and D&D and the D&D sessions were even like therapeutic for me, to be honest. So I'll probably talk more about that in a different video, but yeah, it's been absolutely awesome. I am thrilled. I created a second edition of my Fallen Saga, as I call it. I created a second edition of that player's handbook, specifically for this world where, you know, humans and angels and all these other species have fallen in various ways, and the flood is coming as sort of judgment. And that second edition handbook was or is two. 110 pages in Google Docs. So compared to the 37 pages of the first one, so I was working really hard to get all of that out to my players and stuff. But I do have a new campaign that I am working on for some people that are staying on my campus over the summer. So that this one is going to be about basically hunting down a giant. So that should be really, really fun. But yeah, so those are all the updates from me. I'll make more videos about those things in the future. Uh, but yeah, that is all the updates from me. I don't know what the algorithm was doing with and is doing with my video. Yeah, if you guys don't
I can't
know,
believe it hit 10 million. I was just looking at your profile because I remember I seen it. I saw it at like 2 million. I was like, what on earth?
yeah, yeah, no, and yeah, and I posted that back in February,
Uh,
and every day I'm getting comments and so on about it.
are you seeing
I
like a
actually go
are
ahead.
you seeing like a improvement in like your overall content? Like are people like watching other stuff or is it mainly just like around that one video?
Yeah, people are watching other stuff. My creation debate video where there was a sort of me being a evolutionary creationist and an
Uh,
older earth creationist content friend of mine responded to a debate between a young earther and an evolutionary creationist. So that was a fun video, but that video has increased in views a little bit. The big video that has increased has been my uh I made a video I titled something like Black Liberation Theology as Postmodern Theology. And in the video, I argue that Black liberation theology tends to have the same problem that postmodern theology in general has, which is
mhm,
that they focus way too much on the here and now. It's understandable why they do it, but they swung the pendulum in the opposite direction. I think it becomes an overemphasis. That video got 15K since because that video is linked under the video of me reacting to the joke that went viral.
mhm.
So that video got 15K, maybe over 15K now.
That's not bad.
Some good engagement in the comments. So people who studied the topic were commenting. People were saying I was really smart, which stop it. I'm really not that smart. um, but but so yeah, that was a good video as well. And I think so, and I think it went out to some other like
Mhm,
Black History Month content. But yeah.
gotcha. Oh, gotta love that.
Uh, to respond to this comment, have you checked out Jason Lyle? I think, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Jason Lyle is the scientist and young Earth creationist, right? Um, I'm
I'm
pretty
not
sure.
familiar.
I'm pretty sure I've seen his content. Um, of course, I disagree. I think also just thinking podcast with Virgil is good. I've not heard of podcast with Virgil,
Neither have
but
I.
but I
Been
know
a while.
I mean I would definitely be willing to check it out.
Mhm.
I I like listening to long form content, like especially as I'm falling asleep or working or something like that. So I definitely have time then to do something like that. Um, but no, I and you might disagree with me, James, and that's totally fine. But I don't really think there's a scientific case to make for young Earth creationism, especially if young Earth creationism is going to continue to defend a local flood, or excuse me, a global flood view. That has a lot of issues biblically. I think it. I've made videos arguing that it has some biblical challenges, but scientifically as well, it's uh, hard to see how the planet isn't gonna suffer from like a heat death
Yeah.
um, under that. under a global flood because of all the heat that's going to be released from everything. But
Yeah,
yeah,
personally, I definitely lean towards like an old Earth kind of idea. I do have reservations on it, just like certain things like from Genesis and things like that I've kind of already mentioned a few times. Um, like I can understand like the idea of pre-Adamism and things of that nature, but I think it's just because I've lived in a Baptist church, most of my life, so I'm kind of just in that mindset still. But
yeah,
and I'm slowly taking more ideas from it.
yeah, and that's totally fair. I my understanding theology matters is that Jason Lyle and I always forget his name and it bugs me. But Jason Lyle and the guy that debated inspiring philosophy,
Oh, the guy with
um,
like the beard, on Genesis.
no, he's a doctor. He has a doctorate.
Oh,
He's a young Earth creationist. He has a doctorate. Um, I forget his name. Someone help me remember his name. But these two are like some of the best young Earth creationists, Christians out there. Uh, they would come from different theological and presuppositional backgrounds. Makes sense. Uh, but yeah, and so that's my understanding, and I definitely think they are. I would much rather listen to those two than uh well, Answers in Genesis.
oh yeah.
Um Kinham, I would much rather listen to Jason Lyle and the other one that debated inspiring philosophy, again, can't remember his name, over and against uh Ken Hovind. Because Ken
Yeah.
Hovind just isn't a good person.
Mhm.
And hey, that's not me gossiping or anything. Like the information about his less than stellar moral dealings is out there for people to
Mhm.
check out. So eh,
Yeah.
there's evidence. It's testimony. So more than two witnesses.
Oh.
Um, but yeah, so which is I remember a time where I was a young creationist and I really enjoyed Ken Ham's videos, and I just
For me, it
I'm
was more of the answers in Genesis.
yeah.
Like the very or what was this other one? There was this foundation for I think it was like foundation for Christianity or it was something like that. It was very I don't know, younger yeah, younger Steve.
Yeah. Theology Matter says, what about Chad Jackson's work on the civil rights movement? I've not heard of that either, but that does intrigue me. As I mentioned, I delved into Black liberation theology during Black History Month. I have actually, speaking of which, one of the papers that I wrote for class that I want to turn into an article that I was supposed to get out during Black History Month, but the process just took too long. Um, and I still need to do some work on it because my two professors who got back to me on it said, this is a great paper, but you need to add more, even though it's already 16 pages. So, so, um, but, but, my paper on African American spirituality delved into liberation theology and the different ways in which African Americans have
Mhm.
thought about liberating themselves, basically. So there's some interesting stuff there. I'll tell you a little sneak peek of information. I found out that, so I knew already that the prosperity gospel is in the black and the white church. So if you don't know,
Mhm.
for anyone who doesn't know, the prosperity gospel is this view that like it is, you know, God is going to reward your faith with
Mhm.
financial, physical, etc., prosperity and wellness in this life.
Basically, Joel Osteen.
Yeah, so Prominent figures include people like Joel Osteen. You might have heard the phrase "name it and claim it." Joel Osteen will say, like, and had an entire sermon about calling it in. There's a whole lot of teachers who are advocating the prosperity gospel. Well, I found out that the one of the ways that liberation theology has I despise prosperity gospel, and that's putting it lightly. No, that's fair. The prosperity gospel has so many issues, a lot of issues, a lot of problems. But I found out that in Black theology, the prosperity gospel uh, is not this way of making the individual more financially or physically better. It's about uh, God rewarding the faith of the Black community by helping liberate them financially, physically, etc. So it's similar to the prosperity gospel that you've heard, but it's like we have these socioeconomic pressures that other groups don't have, and God has to step in and do something about that, and He will if we have faith. And
Mhm.
so, very interesting there. Now, aside from it having the same issues that I think the prosperity gospel, as articulated in white churches, has, it also, and this is pointed out by other liberation theologians, but both the black and white churches' iteration of prosperity gospel teaching um, functions with the assumption of American capitalism as the economic system that we need. And you know I'm not, listen, I if this tells you something, I took my economics class during the pandemic in high school. So I was like on Zoom or whatever on Google Meet in that class, and I turned my camera and mic off and took a bath while listening to my teacher lecture. So so I don't know a lot about economics, don't know a lot about capitalism, but you do see this come up a lot in the literature where they view capitalism as problematic or oppressive to minority communities and
Mhm.
so on and so forth. And so the prosperity gospel takes capitalism and the way it's articulated here, and that becomes a problem for many theologians who are down this sort of liberation camp. So I found that all very interesting. Again, I don't know anything about economics. I will leave that up to y'all to judge. But it certainly is the case that prosperity gospel has a lot of issues, and certainly a theology that is assuming, say, that capitalism is great or something like that, could definitely be challenged on that basis, at least if it's going to assume it rather than demonstrate it, if that makes sense. Check out Uncle Tom 2 An American Odyssey. Listen, you seem very well versed in this literature. I am very
Apparently.
intrigued. I'm definitely gonna go back after when I'm editing this video for YouTube and check out some of these sources.
Mhm.
But yeah, so very excited for that article to come out though. Again, was supposed to come out during Black History Month and it just got hauled up with stuff. But I want to finish that article this summer and get it out there. So
Mhm.
uh yeah. So Theology Matters wants to join real quick.
Mhm.
So I can go ahead and invite you.
Might as well.
Yeah.
Howdy. How you doing?
Hey, how you doing?
Doing all right.
That's good. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you good. How about can you hear me?
Yep, I hear you very well.
Cool.
But yeah, man, you seem very well versed in this literature.
Yeah, man, I have a more of a theological, I guess, background. I like, theology, biblical theology, apologetics, epistemology, all that fun stuff.
Same.
I'm a huge nerd when it comes to that stuff. And then my brother, I left ministry, and then my brother was doing a political documentary, and I had to like crash course about like world history and like politics.
Oh,
Um, but my apologetic mind wanted to subdue all those things, or at least be faithful to a biblical worldview, is probably my ultimate starting place.
yeah.
And so I got a crash course in researching all that. And my brother is a film director, and he came out with a film called Uncle Tom, an oral history of the black conservative. And
Mhm.
then he came out with another documentary, which was blacklisted by Hollywood, which probably gives it away. He's probably more conservative than they like. It's called an Uncle Tom 2, and American Odyssey, but it's primarily his work. And then like the main star would have been like Chad Jackson. And so, yeah, I mean, we kind of went through, I guess, our conservative phase. And then, I found out I was too Christian for that too as well. so, for a lot of it, at least anyway. And so, yeah, I think they're good documentaries. I definitely think Uncle Tom 1 is like peanut butter and jelly for us and where the stage we're at. But it kind of, and then it sets the stage for Uncle Tom 2. So he's actually working on a documentary on Yuri Bezmenov, the ex KJB member. So kind
Oh,
of,
interesting.
yeah, he's definitely, I've studied like, wars and communism, socialism, all the isms I studied to, kind of
Yeah.
understand it. And it was kind of a lot, but I do think Uncle Tom 2 is a helpful documentary. That would probably be more your speed. But you brought up like black liberation theology and stuff like that. So I've been studied like, the woke movement. I've studied a lot of that stuff, and really more than anything seeking to understand. I think even where I would disagree vehemently with a lot of stuff, I think understanding enables compassion. And I want to understand and know kind of how things work. That's kind of my nerdness. So I've done a lot of research, but I'm not like a, I'm not that, I'm just a layman. That's all I am. I'm just a nerd. So I figured that stuff would kind of spark an interest. So that's kind of why I seen you were alive. So I was like, cool. Let me see what's up.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I appreciate that. And yeah, we're all nerds here too. And I've said this, like I think there's something to be said for someone who doesn't have any particular qualifications or like something to give them authority, but they certainly know a lot about the subject because they research it from other experts or what have you. So that's how I was for a while. And really, even at Bible college, about to be my senior year, another update, by the way, side tangent, uh, about to go into my senior year of college. So that's gonna be fun. Yeah. But I mean, even going into my senior year, I'm still like that because, like, without the research prior to me that paved the way for me and others to research and to come to conclusions, then I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. We're standing on the shoulders of giants. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yep.
So yeah, no, that's very cool stuff. Yeah, uh I think I made a video about this a while back, but I am dragging my feet when it comes to politics. I really am. I don't want to do this. I do not. I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
But I felt that there should be. I felt that given the current climate in the U.S., that maybe some occasional commentary would be beneficial and some occasional clarity, and I guess maybe more specifically some occasional playing of both sides. And there's a lot to say with regards to that and why I came to that conclusion. But and Black liberation theology is a part of that. Seeing certain scriptures and uh, uh, another piece of that was um, in my intertestamental history class. We talked about the intertestamental period, right, which is this period in between the Old Testament and New Testament, where Judaism is continuing to develop in various different ways, and you see that in the books and the literature that's coming out at that time, and you can see the way that it's the political climate as we see it during this intertestamental period is affecting the New Testament and Jesus' statements and some of the statements of Paul and others starts, especially Revelation, starts sounding a lot more political when you have that background context in mind. So that was something that I couldn't escape either. So I was like, if my Lord is going to do this, then certainly I can't say no. I'm just very, very slowly saying yes.
Yeah, yeah. I
If
mean,
that makes sense.
I stayed in a cave for like the first 9 years as a Christian, so I had nothing to do with it. But it's similar experience. When I left ministry, I moved into my brother's movie studio, and he's like, "Hey, I'm doing this documentary," and I was like, "Yeah," it's like, "Oh," and I'm studying cults at the same time, so it just like he's like, "Hey, you teach me theology." My brother was a new believer at that time. He got saved. So praise Jesus for that.
Mm,
He's like, I'll teach you what's going on in the world. He does have a conservative bent, but he's more of a realist than anything, which I think is great. But he's like, I'll teach you what's going on with world history. You teach me theology. So he's my older bro. I love him to death. Like we can sit there and just talk for hours. He's one of my best friends. And so that was kind of my experience. But then I realized even I would even go past the intertestament period more further back in time, and I would say that even in the Old Testament, there's political things going on. But I guess
yeah,
for me,
absolutely.
yeah, I mean for me, I would say I'm more Kuyperian than anything. So I don't know if you're familiar with Abraham Kuyper.
I'm not.
Um,
Nope.
I'm again, I might give you 30 different things. So sorry. But
No, you're good.
Abraham Kuyper was a politician and a theologian, which made his life very hard. And he was wrong on some things politically and theologically. However, there was some great things that he was right about. And so Abraham Kuyper kind of popularized, which he did not come up with, but he popularized the term of sphere sovereignty. And that is the idea that God has ordained certain institutions, the church, the family, and the government. And I think I see those. Some would say four institutions, like I am in the Imago Dei, and then if you want to count the Imago Dei as an institute, I'm fine with that. But I usually hold to three: church, family, state. And his worldview was that each sphere has their jurisdictions and boundaries and overlaps, and they're not all the same and they're not identical. And if you collapse those things into one institution, you're going to have either communism or sacralism. I mean, or a mixture of something both. It's not good. And so I do think, scripturally speaking, that it was very helpful for me to kind of categorize my worldview, especially in terms of viewing the civil sphere and how to understand that in the light, theologically. And so I believe Christ is king over the civil sphere, where a lot of these politics, which I don't even like that word,
Hmm,
but it's necessary, whatever. But
yeah.
yeah, I do think politics is the realm of possibility, and I do think Christ reigns over politics. We just got to get the Christians to believe that, and then and the church to act accordingly. And I don't mean like ecclesiocracy or anything like that. I do believe every social order is a theocracy fundamentally. It just depends on what God is running it, whether it's an idol or we're faithful to Christ the King over it. So, yeah, I mean, I'm wrestling with that as well, trying to be faithful to Scripture and my Lord with that.
Gotcha. James, do you have any thoughts on the relationship between politics and faith, or are you kind of staying out of the political
Um,
sphere?
so whenever I try to get into politics, I feel like I'm just like I just want to vomit. Just, I don't know. Not to say that the theology does or the theological community doesn't have the same issues, but everyone's very, I guess, cutthroat about it, and it's hard to really get too much in there without getting sucker punched to the throat. Um, but the only real issue I'm like very hell bent on is abortion. Um, just because I'm just very anti against that. But when it comes to other issues, I just have a hard time really wanting to speak much on it. I know it's very important, especially when our world's going crazy a little bit. But um, yeah.
Yeah, I'm in a similar spot. And James, you saw this article,
Mhm.
but I made an article a while back arguing against theonomy, which is
Mhm.
a particular understanding of Christian theocracy, which would say that in some way, shape, form, or fashion, government institutions ought to or will be ruled by God's law.
Mhm.
Excuse me. So, um, and it has its own issues. I think it misunderstands the law of Moses, and I
Mhm.
think those theocratic Christian understandings of government run contrary to the most ancient forms of the church and how the church articulated its relationship to politics at the time. But uh, but after seeing some things that have gone on in different Christian groups, I certainly think it's important. And seeing just like how American like our Christianity um, is kind of concerning me too.
Yeah.
Um, like how contextual it is, because and I agree with black theologians and many others who would make this very same point. But like theology is contextual, just in general. Um, your and you can try to remove this, but your gender, class, race,
Mhm.
et cetera, is going to influence how you think about the Bible and how you're thinking about politics. But the uh but so is the country that you live in.
Mhm.
And being in the United States, like we have particular interpretations and we have particular things that are very much governing our politics and so on. I plan on researching the idea of the moral majority and like where that came from and where Christians were at morally with different political topics prior to some of that, where Christians were with some topics prior to uh, racial reforms,
Mhm.
and particularly prior to the 80s and 90s, I want to say, because I've heard some things about that as well.
Mhm.
But yeah, very much dragging my feet with all that. And trust me, this will not, my social media accounts will not be a political, um, my like theology videos, I should say, will not be mainly political videos. Um, that's for sure.
Mhm.
Um, but you know, we'll touch on it. I'll touch on it occasionally from video to video. But I still think I'm probably going to make more videos more often about different Christian understandings of creation because I find that topic really interesting and really important. Not like salvation bending, but or ending, affirming, whatever. but definitely important and important to many Christians. So,
Yeah, I mean, I would be definitely down to answer some questions. I would actually consider myself a theonomist, but I would be more general equity, and I believe in particularism and the general equity of case law. I do believe God's law is fundamentally case law, which actually has particular applications to a particular culture and time and nation, which would make me different from the Reconstructionists. So I would be a particular vein of theonomist, which would be a little bit more nuanced. But yeah, I would be a theonomist. So if you ever have any questions, or I probably have the same questions, and I don't know if I like. That's not a hill I'm gonna unalive on for sure.
right.
But I do think God's law should fundamentally influence uh, the civil magistrate. However, how you apply that can be different. And I do think there's been bad application before, as well as good application, but it depends. It's case law, so it's case dependent. However, I do believe there's a universal application, but I believe it must be particular according to the context and culture. For instance, I mean, the way I would apply God's law in the civil magistrate in India wouldn't necessarily be the same as I would somewhere in the West, because there's different cultures. Like I don't burn my wife, you know what I mean, or like they would back in the day. I'm not. That's not a shot towards them. That's just what they used to do culturally, and I do think the way I would apply God's law towards that situation would be different from the Salem witch trials over here. You know what I'm saying? So I do think there is. I do think that there's going to be either it's going to be it's not a matter of if law will be applied, it's what law. And if its ultimate presupposition or its ultimate starting place isn't God's law, it's not going to be good, and it's never been good. It's never worked in history. And so I don't, don't get me wrong, I love King Cyrus, but um, I don't think every magistrate is a King Cyrus. So yeah, so that I do think God's law should be implemented. It's just again, I'm not a King George. I don't think it should be. Let's just take God's law and then make a theocracy. It's like, yeah, that's never good because I don't believe in sacralism, and that's a lot of my heroes did, and that's a bad. So
Yeah.
I don't think that I do think that the sword, again, the sword and the sword of the spirit and the sword of the church, or the sword of the church and the sword of the state, they shouldn't be held by one person. That's bad. I think that they have boundaries and jurisdictions, and I don't think we should mix those spheres because a lot of the reformers and sacralists got that wrong, and so I would disagree with them there.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. I will say you sound more nuanced and careful than a lot of people I've heard express theonomy, so I do at least appreciate that for sure. So one of the problems that I mentioned in my article that I talk about on theonomy is that they, from the theonomists I've been able to listen to and stuff, they tend to misunderstand the Mosaic Law. So the Old Testament seems to make it abundantly clear that this law is for Israel at this time. And even that has an asterisk next to it because if you get into the composition of the Pentateuch, which is both a book and a subject matter, um, among other things, you can see that they're changing laws. They're changing laws, they're making additions and probably making subtractions too. It's not clear whether certain laws were ever followed or if they were just uh, lofty ideals for the nation of Israel. Uh, some laws probably would not have been applied because they were, as you mentioned, case laws for that specific case that doesn't apply to a different case. And we also know how law worked in the ancient Near East, and chances are these are a lot of this would be a legal exercise and would have been seen as wisdom rather than, and John Walton points this out in his work on the Mosaic Law, but these laws would have been seen as wisdom for the nation of Israel, particularly for the nation of Israel, than than uh, boundaries that can never be trespassed.
Mhm.
I guess so that would make sense.
Sure.
They're not viewed the same way that we view law. Like if we view law, like we view law as like you trespass this, you will absolutely get the consequences. And in the law of Moses, it would have been something like, you know, here is some wisdom for what to do. The judges are going to decide, though.
Yeah, and I do think there is a progression in the theocracy of Israel. So I would be careful, like how you apply a law during the situation where there's judges, because that was not the ideal state. The Bible was clear about that. That every man did what was right in his own eyes, and that was not a good thing. This is why you needed judges, because things got a little wild. But like for instance, like yeah, case law. I do believe God's law is fundamentally case law. And so I don't know where I would stand specifically if like something changed, but I do think I do think there's a, so like for instance, like the boil the don't boil a goat in its mother's milk, right?
Yeah,
That but that I do think that had a specific cultural aspect due to the pagans that were living next to them, et cetera, et cetera. However, you do see the apostles taking a general principle and applying it, such as like don't muzzle an ox. There is a general principle there, and so like this is where I would say, if you had to boil me, like what are you? What kind of theonomist are you? I would say a general equity theonomist. That is, there's general principles to God's law that we can glean and profit from, profit not in the monetary sense, but like glean and benefit from. This is why I believe like case law system. I don't believe in the prison system because I think it's fundamentally unbiblical according to God's law. So I think the prison system is fundamentally deviated from the Christian worldview, and I believe in restorative justice and restitutional justice.
mm,
I think those are principles. Now there was a point in time where, like for instance, I do think there's, you know, there is parts of God's law that doesn't change. We just change from it, and it's a bad thing. Like I do believe capital punishment is important. However, that you got to be careful how you apply that specifically. But like thou shalt not, and I know I can't say the word, but skirter. I think that is a universal law that we need to apply. But a lot of the framers of our once, I don't believe we live in a constitutional republic anymore. I don't think we live in America anymore, but that's my radical opinion. Sorry. But I think we live in something completely worldview different. But yeah, I do think there's parts of God's law that is unchanging, and we glean from a general principle. That was, at least that was case law. I do think the way England applied it when they first started was disastrous, because you can't, it turns out you can't just take, hey, this is the theocracy law, let's apply it straight across the board. That doesn't work, because that's you can't do that from Eastern to Englishman. That just doesn't work. However, I'm glad for that though, because a lot of those kinks did get worked out. And there is kinks, but so I do think like there's a general principle that is universal and how do I say universal as far as its like efficacy, or but it's particular in its application. So
mm-hmm.
so I think it's different. So I think God's law, I don't think God's law changes, especially like the 10 commandments, especially the first table. However, and I don't think none of the 10 commandments changes. uh However, I do think the application could vary. I mean, and then you're like, well, okay, what about the Sabbath? Well, you're right. That's a grand one, right? So yeah, I think God's law can differ in how it's applied, but I do think there's a universal application that any good government would uphold, and I think that's Paul's view of government, especially in Romans 13. But again, that would be different in how you apply it in certain situations, and so I think that's the problem with America is we've got away from God's word and God's law, and we don't know how to apply it no more. But you know, I that That's my soap, my box of soap.
So I'm kind of, I'm just,
But
so
ask
what
me any question.
exactly,
I think these
to me,
conversations are
this
great.
kind of sound like you're semantically the same, like you're just using semantic to say that you're a virtue ethicist. Am I misunderstanding? Because it just kind of sounds like you're saying that um, there are certain laws that need to be held, but there's also laws that we can kind of take a certain virtue ethic position to. So you just kind of sound like you're trying to say you're at the office, but then you're also kind of sticking deeply into the virtue ethics.
Yeah, well, I think virtue ethics has a fundamental starting point. And that's God's law. That's God's word. God's revealed. I would hold to a revelational epistemology. So I don't believe a lot of theonomists represent theonomy, and I don't conflate a particular theonomist with the whole worldview of theonomy. For instance, Gary North would not properly represent a Bonson, yeah, right? And so it's not. I'm not drowning it in semantics, but because I think semantics are not mere semantics, definitions are important. So, and I'm also disagreeing with the host, but I'm doing it cheerfully or gracefully or charitably. But also, I do think theonomy is strawmanned a lot, and I didn't agree with it for years. I studied it for years, and I didn't agree with it for years until I understood it better. And this is why I would say, yeah, not every Presbyterian believes in baptismal regeneration either. So I think there should be room for nuance, but it's not muddied. Virtue ethics is just another way of saying your worldview of morality, and maybe you hold to a different definition. But yeah, I do think distinctions and categories function logically and theologically, and they're important. And so yeah, I would be a theonomist. I do think the civil magistrate should glean from the general equity thereof. That's the Westminster Confession of Faith of God's law. And I think if there is not an ultimate starting point, and if it doesn't start with God, and if it starts with a pagan presupposition that's alien to Scripture and God, I think bad things happen, and bad things are going to happen regardless. But yeah, I'm a theonomist. I don't make no qualms about it. I just want to be careful.
Yeah. Another thing that I think I noted in that article was that when looking at Paul's ethics and Paul's way of dealing with the law of Moses, he applies it to the church and he makes general applications from the law. He does and I think his ethical viewing uh, of the covenant is partly influenced by virtue ethics. There's very strong arguments to make that he's an Hellenistic Jew, a Jew which was influenced by Greek thought, and virtue ethics would have been a part of that, and we see that pop up in
Sure.
in Paul's work.
I think
But
the whole world was influenced by the this is the
yeah,
biggest thing ever. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But uh, he, as far as I can tell, he doesn't apply the Mosaic Law to the Roman government, and I think other church
Gotcha.
fathers used to follow him on that. So, like, I cited Justin Martyr in my article, but Justin Martyr, he makes the argument from the principles of Rome itself. He basically argues that they're hypocrites because they are supposed to hold to these virtues and are supposed to do this and that, but they are, um, taking the life of innocents, i.e., the Christians, when they're supposed to, hold to
Pro-
justice and reason and so
Protect
on
their
and so
rights.
forth.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so he makes an argue. I mean, he makes a argument that they're hypocritical, but he makes an argument from virtue, and so I kind of come to the conclusion in my article that uh, we need virtuous people and virtuous laws,
Mhm.
but we don't need. And again, I cite theonomists and stuff in the article, but they're probably working on a different framework than you are. But responding to them, I'm like, we need like virtuous people and virtuous laws, but not explicitly Christian laws. in my opinion. So, uh, like like do not unalive the innocent would be virtuous, and it is biblical, but it's also, you can find this in other religions and other
Right.
philosophical
I,
musings.
I got a question for you because this
Yeah.
is what this is what I'm trying to understand.
Hmm.
Not just with you, just I mean with the whole thing. So I would hold to natural revelation,
Hmm.
not necessarily natural law, because that kind of takes on some Thomistic philosophical things that I just that hey, if you're a Presbyterian, you want to go down that route, fine, that's cool. I'm not two kingdoms either. I'm not an R2K guy. I don't believe in two kingdoms, but my thing is like I think God is the ultimate definer and starting place of defining what is good and virtuous, right? So in my starting place, I think the ultimate standard that we say, hey, this person is virtuous, or this law is virtuous, would be God Himself and God's revealed revelation. So I do have a room for natural theology, like it's written, like it's written on, I don't want to say, pagans or Gentiles' hearts, that it's wrong to skirter, right? And I think we see that in other, what I would say, godless societies, right? Even they know naturally, like now they wouldn't hold to it consistently, and in some kind of would. I mean, for instance, like King Cyrus is like that guy was a polytheist, and God used him to build a temple, and arguably he gave the first rights to the, anyways, Israel in captivity. But so like I would say uh, Christian just means Christ-like. Okay, fine. It's not mere semantics. Christ is God. So if God is the ultimate definer between what is good, Paul seems to hold the civil sphere in Romans 13 to what is good. God's the ultimate definer of what is good. So this is why I don't have a problem saying Christian laws, because ultimately, when I mean Christian, I mean ultimately biblical. So I do want ultimately biblical people in, like you're saying, like in position, and ultimately consistently biblical laws or policies, whatever have you, principles. I don't have a problem saying they're Christian, because I believe the ultimate standard to define what is good is God. And I also, with natural theology, I have no problem understanding that pagans, but I just mean unbelievers, can fall into some of the same type of stuff because it's their nature made in the Imago Dei. So I don't have a problem with saying there's Christian laws, if you mean by that they're biblical. So if we're supposed to be like Christ, Christ was arguably God. I would hope you believe. So again, uh, now, does that mean that I'm I'm going to glean specific laws from the Southern Baptist Convention and take them over into Somalia and apply them? No, that would be stupid and reckless, in my opinion. Because again, I do think there's particular application. However, I mean, would you say God is the ultimate definer of good?
Uh, so yes. Um,
And that's not a straw man. I would just, I think you believe that. I just don't want to assume that and then like straw man you. I don't. So I wouldn't
right,
do that.
right. So I would say yes. And I would say that I'm uh primarily a virtue ethicist. So I fall into that like Christian ethical tradition. So and by that I mean um the the goal of life for anyone, but for the Christian especially, um, is and ought to be the development of excellent moral character.
Mhm.
And that is Christ likeness. That is, if you're Orthodox or Catholic, maybe deification, theosis, um, moral development. Um, that is Christ likeness. That is the fruits of the Spirit, etc., etc.
Sanctification. Yeah.
Yeah, sanctification. And I think that the person. and I would agree with you that non-Christians reflect virtues, um, because of the general grace of God and general revelation and stuff like that, um, and so they are able to be partial. I would say, uh, and I think I'm in agreement with something like what Aquinas would say here. I think, if memory serves me correctly, that there's a partial virtue that people can demonstrate, but it's not um, wholly there because Christ isn't there.
Right,
And
right, right.
there's also lost potential because it is only through Christ that someone is made morally perfect uh, in the hereafter.
Right.
So agree with you all there. Um,
Do you
but what I mean, say, let's say in action, for
right,
example,
right.
is um, so you could put it like this, going back to maybe Black liberation theology. Any laws that, for example, actively removed, or I should say desegregated the U.S. was a virtuous law, and maybe, using your terminology, perhaps a Christian law, because the desegregation of the U.S., I think, from a Christian perspective, can be backed by passages that are rebuking those who would oppress others, and that God is for the needy and the one crying out to Him and stuff like that. So while I can't say that, like, desegregation is directly biblical, I agree that there could be biblical principles that are applied, and thus that law can become an outgrowth of that. But I also, while I agree, while I have that nuance, I also don't want the government to sit down together and be like, okay, let's open our Bibles and see what laws we could instantiate in the United States because of
Right.
Psalm 72.
Right. And use coercion to change the heart of a sinner. I don't
Yeah, yeah.
well, this may put on your seatbelt.
Oh
I
boy.
yeah. I think the government coercing desegregation was a mistake because I
Oof.
don't think I think I think in application. So hear me out in application. So I'm making a distinction between principle and application. I don't have a
Hmm.
problem with the government preserving and protecting the rights of people. Amen. Great. I think it can get bad when the government becomes the coercive sword to make people virtuous. Now, again, I would say there's a difference between making people virtuous and stopping them from eating their neighbor, right? Or like you're
Yeah,
saying, yeah. So I would. There's some parts where I would agree, and there's some parts I would disagree because I don't think what the government did actually helped anybody. I think it made things worse because when a government tries to enforce and try to make people change morally, I think it did it without the gospel. And I don't think nothing can transform the heart. In other words, I don't think the government using the sword to implement virtue ethics or positive or negative rights actually changes anybody. I just think when you do that, you actually make people more bitter. I think the gospel is the only thing that can do. And this is what would make me a little bit different. I believe now. I think the church was. I think that was a problem with the church. I think they weren't. I think the gospel. They weren't preaching the gospel and they weren't doing it right.
hmm
Now, again, there's certain principles that I'm not against. I think I understand where segregation came from. I understand I've historically studied where all those policies actually came from and the worldview they came from, which was fundamentally wicked, and I would argue demonic. Um, however, sometimes when the state steps in and tries to make people be virtuous, it's a disaster. It's a crap show. And Theonomists will sound exactly like they're trying to do that. My issue is you cannot do that without a heart change.
I mean,
And
to sorry to interrupt you,
no,
but
no, no, you're good. You're good.
to steel man you, maybe that was the issue with prohibition.
Man,
You
man.
couldn't you could just for whatever reason you could not force people to stop drinking. Now I don't think drinking is a sin, but of course they were also getting drunk, and you just can't force the American people to
Yeah. That
not do that. So
it made the people in the civil sphere. In other words, it inflated the power and jurisdiction of the civil magistrate past its God's given boundaries. So when they tried to stop people from drinking alcohol, in my biblical opinion, they overstepped their God given authority. And this is where things got messy. And by the way, the
mm,
ATF and FBI wouldn't exist if that wasn't the case. So if that lets you know where I stand with them, there you go. I think they're totalitarian and a bureaucrative cult. But regardless, so yeah, and I've done a lot of research on the civil rights movement. I think I have a particular gospel centered view in the sense that I think the gospel is the only thing that gets to people. And what I don't hear a lot of people talking about is region. I'm a regionalist. So like I grew up in a city that was black, white, and Mexican. Um, we were so close, being that we're from the South, that we had like we were very very close. We had our own culture in the South. So I understand that took time, but like I don't hear people talking about regions because like there's not one monolithic culture to anybody. There's different pockets and regions, and so it gets difficult. Uh, I disagree with a lot of the stuff that happened in the civil rights movement, philosophically, theologically, logically, polemically. But there are some things that I'm glad that did happen. But like for instance, I think when the government gets too big for its britches, it oversteps the limitations, and then there's no balance in power. So like because of a lot of people don't understand about the prohibition is the government went in and unalived families. See, but it's not popular to talk about this, but there is proven primary sources that they overstepped their authority. They suspended habeas corpus. They violated people's rights. They unalived men, women, and children because of that. And it's like, hey, maybe the sword actually doesn't change hearts. Maybe it's only the sword of the spirit that does. So when the government tries to enforce an ethic outside of its jurisdiction, and then the church doesn't preach the gospel, man, it gets
and so
problem.
and yeah, and so and I think there's a lot there to agree with. And so for you, you want to say that the gospel is going to uh, change the heart of the in the mind of the white races, for example, but that the government can't change that person's mind. It's the gospel.
Right, like me, I could have a law that says don't unalive people, but it's still going to happen. Primarily, laws are meant to, and yeah, I mean anybody would agree with this. They're meant to preserve the rights of another. This is how a constitutional republic functions. It's to keep other people from, it's and I think law has a restraining factor. Although
Sure. Yeah.
although the Bible's very clear, when you have unjust laws, that restraining factor starts to go away. So
Yeah.
people, the wicked grow emboldened, and obviously I'm paraphrasing, but yeah. So I would think like even like if I had to say what's the problem with, I don't know how do I say this? Like, yeah, I don't think the church at that time took it till its end that it needed. And so yeah, I don't think me implementing a law actually changes the heart of a person.
Hmm.
And then when I studied economics back then, I think the thing is like there was people that didn't want certain groups to be economically powerful, But when I say that, I might mean something different from a Black liberation theologist or a theologian. I do think that's a real thing because I've studied Black Wall Street. I've studied a lot of stuff to understand that there was a lot of bad actors going on that had a different worldview. And if you had to say, well, what's the whole problem? If you had to take me 45,000 feet up, I would say, well, Christians out of apathy and being unbiblical has conceded the grounds to pagans and pagan ideology and unbelieving ideology, and that has natural consequence. And I do think the law is valid for everybody. I mean, the old pagans were judged by the law. I mean, when the government gets too big and too powerful, and there's no checks and boundaries, then bad things happen. And the early framers knew this. Um, and I'm not saying they're all born again Christians or anything like that, but yeah.
Well, that's very interesting for a lot of reasons, especially given that like it was the laws that often enforced segregation and racism and stuff like that. So I
Yeah,
think it's only a natural consequence to reverse those and do
sure.
the opposite if you're trying to and people will, and this is what happened, like people slowly changed over time, and now we have, you know, a very different uh, you know, in some ways similar, but a very different climate where, you know, if someone is, even if someone is mouthing the N word during one of their favorite songs, and they're not black, this becomes a problem. Whereas that certainly would not have been the case as those laws were being changed, right? So there's certainly uh, a future behavioral change that can happen because of a law that is instantiated. But, you know, like I said,
Sure.
you know, to bring the prohibition back up, we also had that, right? And maybe it's hard to predict which one is going to happen depending on the law that you give. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and there's I'm trying to just decide like, okay, where does the restraining benefit of the law end, and where does like them
Right.
going too far from that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, like I do see, like I think like Jim Crow laws were fundamentally unbiblical and demonic. I know where they come from. I know the worldview they didn't come from a Christian worldview. I don't care what people have on their shirt or on their coffee cup. Like I care about how they live and what they say. And so like I would say those are bad laws because of scripture. And I would argue like the founding of America had a semblance of case law that they derived from their English counterparts. But like anything else, they don't take it far enough, and people change. Unbelievers get
Hmm.
in position, but like a lot of people are like, in out of 39, I think no, it's 29 or 39 out of the 56 or however many signers had seminary degrees, and they can speak in Greek and Latin. We're not that educated anymore, and it's like a lot of people think they're so much smarter nowadays. It's like, but then again, you have weirdos like I think Thomas. I don't know. I disagree with some of the framers big time. A lot of them had Enlightenment theology and French theology, and it's like, oh, that's not
Yeah.
good.
It
Uh,
also, you know, it became a thing to follow sort of in the footsteps of the Enlightenment period because for political reasons,
sure.
because they felt that Christianity was the British thing, and of course we don't want to be British, so we need to be, you know, follow the more enlightened path. And so yeah, a lot of early people were
I say
following
duped.
down the track of enlightenment
I would
because
say
they,
duped. I don't want to be British,
yeah,
but I don't want to be
yeah,
Enlightenment thinkers. It's like it's
yeah,
and the thing is, man, it's like the same trick of Satan has been working since the garden. So like as my favorite Christian rapper says, if the same song works, you ain't got to remix it. It's like here's some good truth mixed with a little bit of lie. And then when you just keep doing that, you're going to incrementally be pushed towards a direction. So I can't stand Enlightenment thinking. I think some of it pragmatically used Christian suppositions for its own ends. I don't think the ends justify the means. I think
Yeah.
I have problems with that, and I don't like postmodern thinking as well.
Yeah.
Some of it's
Yeah.
some of it's good, but here's the deal: like, if it wouldn't be subtle if it didn't adopt some truth, and that's why I'm a presuppositionalist. This is why I do. But then again, if you want to think rationally and logically about these things, you're kind of a rare pony.
Yeah. No, I think eh, so I've talked about this before, but the I had a class called Ministry After Postmodernity where we were trying to figure out the cultural historical period that we're now in and how to do ministry in light of it. And uh and the so we learned about modernism, postmodernism, and metamodernism. Metamodern being the current climate that we're in. Although, of course, modernism and postmodernism still has its iterations. With the movie Wicked and Ariana Grande's new album was very postmodern, but for example, but uh, it was very fascinating to study, but it did give me an appreciation for modernism and postmodern, and especially postmodernism, because anytime I saw a Christian engagement with a postmodern, it was always negative. But in that class, we got to explore different ideas. We got to kind of see some of the see some of the postmodern iterations of Christianity, and part of that was, at least me personally, I kind of did this just because I was interested. But looking at Black liberation theology, I plan to look at feminist and womanist theologies, and so on, because. So it was interesting to see some of that engagement, and I'm very excited to see and to myself even work towards a meta modern iteration of these things where we can hopefully synthesize the strengths of the various ideas that have come about from these eras and, excuse me, remove the weaknesses, and by doing that we can push beyond and to something pretty cool.
Are you familiar with Hegel's dialectic?
I've heard of this. I don't know what it is.
It's kind of like you've been walking in it your whole life, you just didn't know. Not that you agree with it or that that's something you like or aspired or something you agree with, but like it's just steeped in the American soil so much that it's like pragmatism. It's there, even if you don't know it's there. And I mean like James Booth pragmatism. So like he had a dialect, and it's basically thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. And the dialectical worldview is that there's a problem, and make the problem even worse. And so it just
Oh, I
depends.
see.
I do think that's a different worldview from the Bible. However, I also do believe that if something is good, don't get rid of it. You
Yeah.
shouldn't. Like it's like I'm gonna scoff at modernism where I think I should, but do I think I should get rid of dentistry? No.
Right.
Yeah, do I think I should get rid of neuroscience? Like the good kind of neuroscience, not the big pharma stuff. Like the good modern, like the good medicine. Yeah, no, and I would argue like sometimes there's a tendency of Christians to be um I would hasty generalization fallacy, or maybe throw out the baby with the bathwater. I can understand that, sure, but like I'm not like I don't try to be that way,
Yeah, of
but
course.
I have hard disagreements too at the same time. But then again,
Hmm.
it's like I'm not gonna throw my phone away in TikTok and saying go back and build a wooden farm and live in a, you know what I mean? Like I like this
Yeah.
stuff, you know what I mean? I think we should use it for the glory of God, because
Yeah.
if we don't, pagans are gonna use it for the opposite, and I'm a fighter. So I want to use the good stuff, eat the meat, throw away the bone. But if we don't know where the bone is and the meat ends, we're gonna be broken in teeth. So I just want to be
Yeah.
careful there, like, but I don't know if any of that makes sense. But yeah.
No, I totally understand you there. James, we've said a lot. Do you have any do you have any thoughts?
I wish I did. Honestly, this kind of like sociological kind of conversations out of my wheelhouse, so I'm struggling a little bit to keep up. But
Sorry.
it's definitely like a interesting kind of perspective on things, I suppose.
Yeah, and James, you'll see some of the articles in which I'm ranting about all this, so um it's totally okay that you don't understand it. And like I this is why I usually explain what I'm talking about when I say modern, postmodern, and metamodern, because people usually don't know. Sometimes people have a vague idea what postmodernism is, but that's really the extent of it. So I realize that uh I'm when I'm talking about those things, I'm often using vocabulary and stuff that not a lot of people are aware of. But
Mhm.
yeah, real quick, James, did you have anything more in your notes or your script that you may want to mention or talk about? Mm. Yeah, so a quick reminder for a few things, guys, who to everyone, excuse me, to everyone who is watching. I have a TikTok shop now. So, and I have some other financial avenues with YouTube. I'm going to be exploring the YouTube store. There's going to be super chats involved and a possible membership opportunity that will be involved with my YouTube channel. So, but as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to make all of those um, opportunities for you to get a product or something like that, or for you to get some perks or something optional. And I'm not going to lock my content behind any sort of paywalls. So, of course, all my articles, all my videos, they're always going to be free for you guys to enjoy, especially when we're talking about, really important conversations when Christians are disagreeing with each other, of course, to the glory of God and so on and so forth. I just wouldn't personally be comfortable with doing something like that. So, those that content will all the content will be out there, of course. But if you are so generous as to check out some of the content that's going to be out, or some of the product that's going to be out, I would appreciate that, especially because I am a poor, broke minority college student, and I'm trying to pay for college and these other things. So, yeah, so check out the TikTok store. The YouTube store may be coming out this summer, hopefully this summer. Um, on YouTube, there will be super chats and other things. And if you click the link in my link tree, you can see a link to Verena, which is a beauty and skincare product thing that you guys can check out as well if that is something that would interest you. Uh, Thank you again. If you do decide to do any of that, I really appreciate it, and it's money that's definitely going to be put to good use. So, but yeah, James, did you have anything?
One question I kind of was thinking about is, what's something you guys think that really needs to be worked on in the Christian community? Kind of like, what's something that's just not really being talked about enough more generally?
Something. So I'll take that part specifically. What is not being talked about enough? Because I feel like that's a trickier thing. Because I feel like a lot of people, understandably so, have a lot of concerns about the church that are talked about.
Mhm.
So I think something that isn't talked about is a much harder question to answer. Um, Something that isn't talked about a lot. I guess too that can be good or bad. Um, I'm trying to think.
Yeah, finally.
I mean,
Huh?
I could talk about. I mean, I've done ministry and I've been in I could just while he's gathering his thoughts. For me, is actual life on life discipleship. This is more of a pragmatic thing. Um, I think the Great Commission is important, and so I think at some point in time, I don't know. I really feel like making disciples is very important. And I don't think I think a lot of the problems that we see nowadays is people for whatever reason. I don't claim to know every reason because I'm fickle. Have lost sight of that, and that is God's plan. And I think the church, instead of trying to do A, B, and C, are wasting their time with other things that are not necessary. Not the things that are necessary, but the things that are not necessary. I think they need to make disciples. And I hold to a very archaic Eastern view, which I would argue it's not just Eastern, but it should be it's the best view of discipleship is pupil and master. I'm doing life with my disciple. I'm being in some form. We would call it mentorship. Um, I think Jesus' style of making disciples is the best way. It's not the only way, but I would argue it's the best way, and I think the church needs to get back to that. I really do.
Yeah, totally, honestly, totally understandable, totally valid. Yeah, if we can have good teachers pour into our lives, we can benefit quite a lot. So I think that's totally fair. Um, I don't know. There's so much. Um, there's a lot. Uh, um, something that doesn't get talked about enough. Hmm. Um, to say, I guess something positive that doesn't get talked about enough. Um, I think youth ministry was probably a very good idea. Uh, I I think it's has been very effective in a lot of ways. I think it's been very, for me personally, it's been very crucial. Um, uh, concerns can come about through that. I had an intro to ministry class, and a lot of people did their final presentations on youth ministry. So, we're aware, especially the people who are working in the field, they're aware of the concerns, but, uh, you know, train a child up in the way they should go, right? I think, we as Christians today, not being Israelites and not having the same type of setup that Israelite society did, we can still take that principle and apply it. And I think we see that in youth ministry. So I'm highly supportive of youth ministry, and I think it's a really cool avenue to pursue, and I think is going to be very crucial now as young people. I say this as if I'm not 22. Um, Younger people
Wow, you're
are,
22.
yeah, yeah.
Woo, man, I'm old, man. I'm old compared to y'all, probably.
They're going to continue struggling with mental health, with uh, concerns about identity. So we need a youth ministry that can do that discipleship with them. And I think do it in a way that's informed. Because to complain a little bit, like a excuse me, a fundamentalist youth ministry is not equipping children. Not really. Not for those.
Yeah, putting on
Especially
a few times isn't exactly the best.
yeah, yeah. I mean, the worst time to in the worst forms of fundamentalism indoctrinate your kid is going to be in their teen years when their brain is malleable and you're telling them this very simplistic KJV only understanding of the Bible, uh, purity culture, et cetera, et cetera. Like this is not setting them up for success. This is setting them up for failure. Um, and so, I think a youth ministry should have um, the tools, the education, perhaps, and the fun. They're kids. They should.
Yeah.
Let's have fun. You know what I mean? Uh, let's not forget that. But should have all those things to set them up for success. So, and I feel like my youth ministry, the youth ministry I was a part of when I was a wee lad, was definitely helpful to that end. So
I have a question.
yeah, what's up,
Dragon Ball Z, the greatest anime of all time.
man? Listen,
Let's go.
man. I feel like Gideon.
I grew up on that, and this even was even past
Don't kill me, but I've never seen it.
What, James? Listen, what are you doing?
I know.
You and me have things to do. All right, we have to. We need to binge watch Dragon Ball. That's what we need to do.
You would disagree, James?
I just haven't seen it.
Man,
you haven't seen Dragon Ball Z?
Nope. No.
As a good Christian brother, I'm going to call you to repentance right now.
I know.
Man, it is so good. It is so good. I love it. I've seen. So I saw Dragon Ball Z, GT, and Super, and I'm caught up on the modern movies. So I absolutely love it. And yeah, I think it's still the case. I have watched other anime, but I think it's still the case that my top two animes are Dragon Ball Z and Death Note.
Oh, that's the one.
Yeah. Now, My Hero Academia, that it's encroaching. It's really encroaching. I'm almost sad that it's not in the top two for me at this current moment. But listen, I might wake up tomorrow and feel differently, honestly. But that My Hero was so good. Solo Leveling.
Yeah, we just said that at the same time.
Oh, we did it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Solo Leveling, dude. My daughter turned me on to that, actually.
Oh, that's awesome. No spoilers because I haven't seen season 2, but yeah, absolutely. I mean, because Solo Leveling is anime and video game logic. Like, how can that not be awesome? Like, it's hard to fail at that concept. So yeah, Solo Leveling is up there for me. There are some like lower tier ones for me where I'm like, yeah, it's good. I definitely enjoyed it. God Eater is that for me.
What about Attack on Titan?
Parasite was that. Attack on Titan's in the upper echelon for sure. Absolutely.
Parasite was one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Right now is Frieren. That one is really, really good.
You said Parasite was the one?
Frieren.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, man. A lot of good anime out there. I love, one of my favorite things is, especially as someone who's now gotten heavily involved in Dungeons and Dragons, one of my favorite things to see is the fandom and watch the fandom create as inspired by the thing that they're a fan of. So, like, one of my favorite fan-made products, arguably my fan-made product, is Dragon Ball Deliverance, which is a fan-made series on YouTube, which takes place after Dragon Ball GT. I think like 20 years or something after Dragon Ball GT, something like that. And its first couple of episodes are a little rough, but like once you get to episode 3, like please watch episode 1 and 2, get to 3, and then like if episode 3 doesn't sell you, I don't know what will, man. Like that episode single-handedly made me respect SSJ4 Vegeta, and it's not even official canon.
Where do I watch it?
That's on YouTube for free.
Dragon Ball Z Deliverance.
Yeah, Dragon Ball Deliverance.
Oh, Dragon Ball Deliverance. Gotcha. Well, hey, I gotta jump. I gotta go. Good convo with you guys, man. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining. I would definitely love to have you in the future.
All right, peace, grace, and peace.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so do you have a favorite anime, James?
My favorite is probably just Children of the Whales. It's like a very like small anime, like no one ever knows about it. But it's really good. It's like
Interesting.
it's like a kind of like a survival kind of anime where they like live on a small little island only to kind of like be attacked by other nations and
Oh,
yeah.
gotcha. Interesting. Yeah, there's definitely a lot to watch in that regard too. So we'll see what happens with that over the summer as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, so did you have any other questions or anything like that?
Nothing on my list. I probably should prepare it a little bit more, but
Oh no, you're good. I mean, you still had a almost 2 hour conversation, so
yeah.
yeah. All right. Well, I think we can start closing it up here. Just a final reminder for a few things if anyone is watching, or of course we'll watch this once I post this on YouTube and Rumble. Again, I at the time of recording this live stream right now, I am extremely close to 10K subs on YouTube. Thank you, God. Thank you, thank you, algorithm. Thank you, luck. You know what I mean? Because I mean, the that was very random. The video that blew up me reacting, which was a video of me reacting to a racist joke, um, just blew up. But thankfully it did because more people are able to see, of course, the non-Christian content that I do, which I want people to see and enjoy, but also the Christian content I do, where where I can share the gospel with people and defend and support the Christian faith and stuff like that. And that's obviously a big motivator to continue doing this stuff. So, but if you're new here, hi. Definitely check out the YouTube channel because there's content that is there that is nowhere else. And there will be content that is there that is nowhere else. In June, I have a huge video, which is a book review of a book called Understanding Transgender Identities, where it goes through 4 different Christian views on transgenderism. I'm very excited for that video when it comes out in June, so be on the lookout for that. Working on a biblical slavery series again, so definitely be on the lookout for that over the summer. Again, on TikTok, and check out the TikTok shop and get you something nice. And I'm going to be adding products there that relate to the content that I do. So expect, anime, some Christian Jesus stuff. Expect vampire stuff, just because I love vampires. So expect all that stuff to be there as well. And I hope you can get you something nice. On YouTube, in my video premieres and in my live streams, which will be coming up over the summer, you'll be able to do super chats and stuff like that. So definitely be on the lookout for that. I'm going to be setting up my store on YouTube. So there's going to be product on YouTube as well, which may even have my own logo and stuff on it, which I'm very excited about. So I'll be working on that and seeing where that goes. I may open up a membership opportunity for viewers on YouTube who may be interested in that as well, and you will get some additional perks and stuff like that. I'll remind everyone again for the final time, though. I'm very grateful and very blessed to very suddenly even have all these financial opportunities for my content. But that's not the primary reason why I started doing this stuff and why I will continue to do this stuff. It's not the primary reason, wasn't even the secondary reason. And so I'm gonna make sure that all financial opportunities that I have are optional for you guys. So you guys can continue to enjoy all the content for free. And if you choose out of the kindness of your heart, or your, excellent financial management skills, to donate to get you something nice and help me out, then please feel free to do so. But again, it'll all be optional. Also, I remind you, be on the lookout for articles. I have school papers like on African American spirituality and the intertestamental period, and some other really fascinating stuff that's going to be coming out. And I'm also going to be editing and finishing up my article series on evolutionary creationism. Finally, be on the lookout for some weekly videos because all sorts of topics are going to get brought up in the weekly videos. I'm going to be posting daily content, so you'll see at least 7 videos a week from me, which can be about Dungeons and Dragons, some of the articles that I've written, and some other topics that I'm excited to talk about. So, again, thank you so much to everyone who is watching. Thank you to everyone who started noticing me after that video and following me because of that video. And I hope you enjoy the content here, and I hope you consider God, consider Christianity. James, do you have anything you want to say before you go?
Well, thanks for having me on. I had a pretty good time.
So check out followersoftheshepherd.org, where I post my articles and where James and others are posting their work on Bible, theology, and so on and so forth. Also check out Followers of the Shepherd on YouTube and TikTok, where content is going to be posted over the summer. He said that he would try to post 2 videos a week, so I'm very interested to see what he's going to be posting. James always does some good work on his accounts, so feel free to check out that stuff if you're interested in Christianity, Bible, theology, and all of that sort of stuff as well. Thank you everyone again, and have a blessed day.